Build healthy communities. I'm Jan Levy. I am your president this year, and I hope you'll all be patient with me because this is the first time I'm presiding over a Zoom meeting and I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. So, Mary, you're in charge of all of this. I want to start the meeting by reminding everyone of Sue McNabb's comments a few weeks ago. 1+1. Everyone is expected to bring a new member in this year. 1+1 equals more members, equals a stronger Rotary Club. I've said this before, I want to be the first president in 20 years to end the year with a net positive growth in new members. I can't do it without all of you. So I'm begging, pleading, charging each one of you to bring a new member, bring a new prospect, and then follow up with them to find out how wonderful it was for them, which it will be. Consider yourself reminded, bring a new prospect, come to a meeting in September. We've got some great programs lined up. And speaking of great programs, we have a great program today. Our short program is going to feature Lisa Edwards and Colin Olden, who are going to talk about the district's RISE program. If you're not familiar with RISE, it's an 11-week virtual and in-person professional leadership training program. It pairs leadership best practices with Rotary principles, and it's a really great program. Following our short program, we're going to continue to focus on civic engagement with the president and CEO of the Seattle Foundation, Alesha Washington. The Seattle Foundation really does help show us how civic engagement can be transformed into lasting impact. That's really what that's all about. Before we get started, I want to thank Pete Delaney, who is doing our meeting reporting today. And Mary, do we have guests?
We sure do. We have Tom Leonidas from our district, Rotary District 5030. We have Alesha Washington of the Seattle Foundation. We have Lisa Edwards of District 5030 as well. And then we have Melissa Johnson and Marcus Cullen. So welcome. We're glad to have you today.
Welcome, all of you. And if we missed anyone, wave madly and we'll announce you. At this time, join me in welcoming Lisa Edwards, who is an assistant district governor in Area 7 and a member of the University District Rotary, and Colin Olden, who is a member of our club, and they are going to tell us all about the district's RISE program. Thank you to both of you.
Wonderful. I'm going to turn it over to Colin because your club invested in Colin to go through this program. And I think it's important for you to hear about your investment. So Colin, can you please share briefly about your experience?
Yes, of course, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. Colin Olden. I went through the RISE program, I believe it was last summer. I think it was Q3 of last year. And frankly, I didn't really know what to expect. I was very new to Seattle 4 as a whole, and assumed, maybe wrongfully so, that whatever I would get out of the RISE program was solely going to be geared towards Rotary. What I found and fortunately took away from it was just an immense overall professional and personal development. And I'd say that that's for two main reasons. One, I was paired with a fabulous mentor from the Bellevue Club. We had a lot in common, and she really helped me navigate and make sense of a large club and how to have the best impact, as well as introduced me to a lot of professional network connections that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I was really grateful and appreciative for that. I'd say on the other end, we're paired with groups that aren't just Seattle 4. So seeing how different clubs are able to execute the overarching goal of service above self really, I think, highlighted for me that you can have an impact in small or different ways because the message and the idea of what we're doing is there. And it was really impactful to see how that showed up. So I had a really wonderful experience. I highly suggest it, especially if you're new to the club or thinking about stepping into even a new type of leadership position. It was a fabulous experience.
Wonderful. Thank you, Colin, so much. I am pleased to introduce Tom Leonidis, who is my partner in as we execute each RISE cohort. We are right now taking registrations for cohort 5, and that deadline is Friday. And so we're excited to be here to give you an overview of where the program's at, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom to kick off with some data.
Well, thank you, Lisa. We're delighted to be here to talk to you about this program. Um, the RISE program really enhances Rotary membership. It's an added value, and it helps build club level leadership, but also, as Colin said, it helps build professional growth. And so much about being a good leader is about communication and navigating interpersonal relationships and ultimately building trust. And that trust is kind of the currency of being a really good leader. So this is where RISE comes in. And so the sum total is that RISE really helps build leadership and trust skills that not only deepen Rotary engagement, but also help people in their professional development outside of Rotary. A little bit about kind of the background and some context about what we're dealing with in the workplace. In order to build and grow, you have to have good people and train them and develop them and keep them. And some of the biggest reasons that people leave organizations or a job are really not money related. It's about being not meeting expectations of what they thought, and also being in a toxic work environment or toxic leaders. And I know when I was president of my club, we had a toxic member in our club that we had a bunch of people that were ready to leave, and we had to deal with that. So the key point here is that leadership grows people and organizations, and poor leadership makes people leave, and you get high turnover. Going on to the next slide. Rotary has done some studies about, how to keep Rotarians. And the key issue here is that if you can keep a Rotarian for 2 years, you have a greater chance of keeping them for the long term. What makes Rotarians leave is lack of clear expectations about what's expected for them. So a good onboarding program and good mentoring program like Seattle 4 has and others, in educating them about the organization. And one of the other key things is unmet networking expectations and kind of lack of engagement. And that goes both ways. And one of the things we hear from the cohorts, both in the sessions and individually, and when we're mentoring them, they're coming to us saying, there's this person in the club, or even one was a club president. I'm just having a hard time relating, or somebody at work, and they're getting ready to leave a job, and they're asking, how can I navigate this? So that mentoring piece is really huge in getting people connected. Going on to the next slide. Rotary is focused on retention, and what we're trying to do with the RISE program is increase that stickiness by offering value-added experiences. And if we can give people that training to grow their leadership and professional skills and mentor them, that's golden. And one of the things that we've heard from a number of the cohorts coming through this program is, what you're offering, I can't get at my workplace. And a lot of companies have not, or they've reduced their training budgets. So we really have a gem here in the district. And to talk a little bit more about the details of the program, I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. So here's the value add for clubs, and we're so grateful for Seattle 4 because you've sent a number of members through this program, and we hope that you will continue to do so. You know, obviously member recruitment and retention, offering this leadership development program as a perk of membership is a great value add, as well as creating your own leadership pipeline. So this is president-elects, president-elect nominees, etc., and professional development. So this 11-week program, we're going to keep going. I know we only have a limited amount of time, and we'll skip the video because we'll run out of time. But real quickly, this cohort, go back one, please. If you look, every cohort has a different group of facilitators, and we've started this new process with the past district governor kicking off what is servant leadership. Jeff Gross is a professional consultant and facilitator. Jill Tracy is a CEO. Paul Luali is a CEO, and Libby Wagner is a consultant who specializes in high-performing teams and building trust. That's this cohort. It's one of the best we've had so far for facilitators. Keep going, please. So once again, builds on a model that Rochelle Bouchon and I saw in Salt Lake City that we adapted. We're the first in the US to take this model, adapt it, and launch it. Next, please. And once again, the content is immediately applicable. So value-added content they can take to apply to their work life, their Rotary life, their personal life. And pairing those principles with best practices so there's a lot of application. Next slide, please. This is an overview of servant leadership and the concepts that we cover. These are once again based on the work of Dr. Kent Keith and other servant leader experts throughout the United States. Next slide. We have 5 session topics. These sessions are virtual and really dig deep. There's pre-work, about 30 minutes of pre-work before each virtual session. And this year we're adding a networking element that will be hosted by the Bellevue Rotary Club. And the next slide. And how are we doing after 4 cohorts? We have 4.6 out of 5 stars if you go by Amazon reviews. 2/3 of our participants say that they can immediately apply what they've learned. We get great feedback. We do a survey after each cohort, and we're looking forward to continuing this program. Currently, Salt Lake City, San Francisco, Oakland, and Denver are copying and adapting our model. Next slide, please. And so here's a quote from Roma, one of our many alumni, who directly applied the principles she learned in RISE to her work life and had phenomenal success in achieving targets that she didn't think she would be able to achieve otherwise. So your help, we need your help. We're looking for mentors. It's about a 4-hour commitment. We're also encouraging clubs to sign up newer and emerging leaders, and that should be all of us emerging leaders, to participate in the program as well. So some ideas, think about new club nomination process, make sure your president-elect nominee is in. Some people have done this as a drawing and a fundraiser as well. And the cost is still $150, and the QR code is right there for you to scan with your phone. So please make sure you talk to Jan. If you're interested in participating in this program, we would love to have you join us.
Thank you, Lisa and Colin and Tom. I think this sounds like a great program. Somehow I got muted. Kent Keith is terrific, and the program sounds fabulous. And I think $150 is a bargain.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe we also supported a couple of people. With that, we're going to move on. And thank you again. And if you have questions for Lisa and Colin and Tom, please put them in the chat. For more than 75 years, the Seattle Foundation has been a trusted partner in advancing the civic life of our region. It's mobilized philanthropy to strengthen nonprofits, fostered collaboration across sectors, and elevated voices of community members who know best about how to serve and what is needed in their communities. I'd like to invite Cindy Sherrick to come forward. She is the Director of Major Gifts at the Seattle Foundation, and I thought it would be great if she would introduce her boss, Alesha Washington.
Thank you,
Cindy?
Jan. Thank you, Jan, and good afternoon to my fellow Rotarians. My name is Cindy Sherrick, and my title is actually Director of Gift Planning at Seattle Foundation. I've been there for about 2.5 years. So today I'm honored to introduce someone who inspires me and so many others, Alesha Washington, who's the President and CEO of Seattle Foundation. Alesha marked her 3-year anniversary with Seattle Foundation in May and has brought a fresh vision, a big heart, and a lot of joy to the philanthropy in our region. Alesha grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a neighborhood that taught her resilience, creativity, and the importance of community. And she has carried that spirit into her leadership, whether she's tackling big challenges like affordable housing and childcare, or bringing our team together at a monthly all-hands meeting like we had today. She leads with authenticity, equity, and a belief that real change happens with communities, not for them. So please join me in welcoming my colleague, my boss, and someone I'm proud to call a friend, Alesha Washington.
Oh, Cindy, I was not prepared for you to do that. So let me kind of get myself together. But I really appreciate you and the partnership that we have. Many, many thanks to this Rotary Club for just inviting me to be in community with you today. I want to thank John Bridges, who made the initial outreach to say, I want you to come and speak to Rotary, because the people should know what the Seattle Foundation is doing today. And then the opportunity to meet so many of you along the way. So thank you. And so I'm excited that I get to talk with you about all things civic engagement, the Seattle Foundation, and our role in kind of the collective action that's necessary for our community to thrive. Now, this is going to be an interactive conversation. There's going to be a pop quiz, and we're going to ask you an open-ended question. And so I just invite you to prepare yourselves now to engage so we can have a dynamic and fun time with each other. If you go to the next slide, this will give you an overview of what we'll do in our journey together this afternoon. We'll talk a bit about just civic engagement, the what and the how, so we're level setting with the same information. From there, I want to provide an overview of Seattle Foundation and how civic engagement shows up in our work and what it means to us through our grant making and our impact efforts. I'll give a little bit of a call to action at the end, because the reality is there's always more that we can do as individuals to engage more deeply in our community. And then I know the incredible Rotary team will guide us through a Q&A so we can have more open discussion with each other. And so give me a thumbs up if that sounds like a good plan. Awesome. Well, let's get into it. And so first question out of the gate. So this is where I'm going to invite you to come off mute and share, but it is, what does civic engagement mean to you? Because I want us to move through this discussion with shared meaning. One of the things that I loved in kind of my prep call with Jan was knowing that the Rotary has made civic engagement one of its core pillars. But with that being said, it's always great to hear people in their own words. What does civic engagement mean to you?
Are there any hands up? We can't see you. I can't see you, so.
Yep, so if you want to share, you come off mute. You can also put an answer in the chat as well. See, Marcia has her hand raised.
Marcia?
Yeah, good afternoon. So it's just, to me, it means civically engaging elected officials and other powerful people, and knowing, I think, since moving from a third world country for a lot of years, I didn't realize really the power of that, being in the first world, is that you can actually access elected officials and be able to um, effect laws and things like that by advocating for yourselves and others in regular people and those that are decision makers, just having that ability to go across the just being able to advocate for yourself and others in the community. That's what I'd say.
That's great, Marcia. I see some great answers in the chat around volunteer with purpose and commitment for our public and nonprofit organizations, participating in community, working together to improve everyone's quality of life. These are great. Can I get one more?
I'm Dorothy Bullitt.
Dorothy.
I'll give you just an example of, for me, civic engagement is every day writing to Congress. Every day is making a small donation to
Yeah.
an organization that's helping to pick up some of the burden that is being imposed on more vulnerable people by the current administration, or small political donations, and then also working at a local level with the city to try to improve our community here. Those are, and another like much more local example, on Labor Day, I'm holding with my neighbor a patriotic protest sing-along for people who don't feel safe going to public protests, but
Yeah.
want a sense of community, and to do it together in a neighborhood just with no fanfare, small, casual. Those are just some examples.
Oh, I love that, Dorothy. And I even love the continued answers that are coming through in the chat, focusing on skills and knowledge. And so let me give you a few additions that I think kind of add to what's already been said and maybe introduce a few other things. The first, and this kind of builds on where Mark was going with the comment he put in the chat, this definition of civic engagement actually comes from the University of Washington and the way that they describe it in context of their work. And what I love about this particular focus is around the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation being core to the way that we are able to civically engage. And then the other, if you go to the next slide, that I really liked, comes from Seattle City Club during the time frame when they were really doing their civic health index. So, right, a focus on civic health and that definition that really centers in on the strength that exists within a community to do collective problem solving, right? That really centers in on collective power and mutual responsibility. If you go to the next slide, and I think you all started to populate a lot of this through the comments you put in the chat, where we heard from Marcia, where we heard from Dorothy so far, the ways, right, the actual actions that you can take to be civically engaged. And so whether it's supporting a candidate through their campaign or actually supporting candidate forums, whether it's through social efforts like this, like the Rotary Club to be involved, staying informed on key issues. I have to give a big shout out to KUOW through their Seattle Now podcast. That's how I learned as a new resident of Seattle 3 years ago, the key issues happening in the community, right? So support your local NPR station, the way that we advocate on important issues, and even through philanthropy. These are ways that we can be civically engaged. But if you go to the next slide, there are unfortunately disparities in civic engagement. So again, back to the work that Seattle City Club used to do around kind of gauging civic health across the region, there are inequities that show up across race and income as it relates to participating in public meetings. And even at Seattle Foundation, we've seen this in our work through the work we invest in around voter participation. The bottom line is that if individuals are struggling to make ends meet, or there's some level of distrust in government, voting is not a top priority for them. And so what we really try to focus in on with our work is around how do we address those disparities and inequities. And so that kind of leads us in as we go to the next slide, for me to actually share a little bit with you about who Seattle Foundation is today and where we're headed, right? There are a number of you here that I know have had relationships with the foundation, either through being current fund holders, a past trustee, many other ways that you've intersected and connected over time. And so I want to give you the latest and greatest about who we are and where we are at this moment in time. As you know, Seattle Foundation is a nonprofit that harnesses resources for our collective good. We've been around since 1946, so to Jan's point, we're almost 80 years old. And we've had really notable leaders of this institution, from folks like Ann Farrell, who we recently celebrated her life and her legacy in this community, to Norman Rice, and even his wonderful wife, Constance, who was on our board for a period of time. And I know you recently had a chance to talk with Phyllis Campbell, who was a phenomenal leader of this institution as well. Our vision is really centered on fostering a joyful region of shared prosperity, belonging, and justice for everyone who calls Seattle home. And our mission is to ignite powerful and rewarding philanthropy that makes that vision a reality. So this slide gives you a little bit about how we think about our value that we offer to folks that want to be in relationship with us. Our value really rests in the way that we help people be effective and engaged givers through the way that we advise, help them learn, and build connection. Our community impact work really positions us as a civic leader and convener on issues that matter. And we offer a variety of structures and tools to help people with their philanthropy, while also ensuring that we are managing the assets we have well for the greatest return back to community. So if you go to the next slide, this gives you a little bit of like fast facts about who we are. We have a $12 million operating budget. There are about 60 people at Seattle Foundation that fuel the work that we do. Our board of trustees and our advisors provide governance oversight, investment management strategy. They also support our community grant making. We steward $1.5 billion in assets, which is comprised of about 1,200 individuals, families, organizations, and companies that host their funds with us. You all know Cindy as a fellow Rotary Club member. She is the person that helps people open funds with us for the philanthropy that we want to do. And so if you're interested, she's the lady to talk to for sure. And every year we grant about $200 million into community. Now this is pop quiz time. The question is, of the $200 million that we grant into community, how much of it is discretionary giving? And discretionary means the dollars that our program team actually controls and moves, not our donor advised funds. And so it's multiple choice. I'll give you your options. The first option is 50 million. The second is 25 million. The third is 10 million. So again, the question is, of the $200 million that we grant into the community, how much comes from our discretionary resources? 50 million, 25 million, or 10 million? And yeah, you can just throw the answer in the chat. I'll just wait for a couple to come through. Curious where you all land. Okay. Oh, you guys are, you're giving us way more than what we got. And so the answer is actually 10 million. Of the money that moves, the majority is from our donor advised funds. There's a small pot of discretionary resources that we move for strategic and proactive issues that we want to invest in on an annual basis. If you go to the next slide, our role in civic engagement is really informed by our belief that everyone has a stake in our democracy. And so we really aim to serve as an incubator for building community leadership, as well as power within community. So we are really in charge of writing the future that we want for the place and the neighborhoods that we live in and the cities that we live in. Our focus around civic engagement breaks down into 3 areas. The first is representation. Do the folks in elected office actually reflect the diversity of our communities? And then who gets to make decisions about how public resources are spent? The second area is around access. Do we have fair access to participate in the democratic process? And the third is around inclusion and belonging. How do we ensure that we're creating more pathways for underserved folks in particular to be able to have greater voice and ownership in the trajectory of our communities? We grant about $1 million every year through our civic impact strategy, which ranges from everything. If you go to the next slide, and it just gives you an image of some of the work that our organizations like symbolically lean into. So this supports everything from voter education and outreach efforts from groups like the Urban League of Greater Seattle or Asian Counseling and Referral Services, all the way through, if you go to the next slide, coalitions like the Washington Community Alliance, the Latino Community Fund, and even One America that work together for policy change in Olympia. And these groups and so many more that we have the privilege of investing in have done everything from ensuring the protection of Washington's Climate Commitment Act to ensuring that doula services were reimbursable through Medicaid in the state, and so much more. And through them, if you go to the next slide, we've been learning a lot. So what they always help us center back on is the importance of listening as a key part of keeping a pulse on what's happening in our communities, and being able to respond to what communities need. Through them, we're also learning the importance of investing in leadership, especially for young people. So you start early through civic education, all the way up through volunteering and internships to help folks really have ownership over the direction of what's happening within the community they live. And then also investing in collaborative spaces. A lot of organizations that are on the front lines of civic engagement and even democracy building work are so often just responding to the things that are happening to our communities. They're in a reactionary stance, and we're seeing so much of that now. They really desire spaces where they can come together and dream and strategize, because that's how we build towards that joyful future and the work that we want to see. They're also telling us what they need. If you go to the next slide, multi-year general operating dollars is just a gold standard in philanthropy if you can do it. Ensuring organizations have the runway and the flexibility to plan with their resources always helps them move faster and stronger in fulfilling their mission. If you can't do more, being flexible with what you can give is also equally important. This shows up for us when we accelerate grant payments to organizations so they can get their resources faster versus waiting on kind of a arbitrary payment schedule that may not actually have a real meaning other than we just always schedule it that way. And then also with project grants, having the flexibility if an organization's dynamics change to allow them to flex those dollars for more pressing needs is always a helpful thing that we can do. Something that I think is really going to become important in the coming years, unfortunately, because of the dynamics of what we're navigating right now as a community, is the need to invest in nonprofit infrastructure support. With the loss of federal funding, the way that we've seen it play out just in the 8 months of this year and what is likely to continue, the ability to sustain the nonprofit ecosystem as we know it today will be very challenged. And so the investments that we can make in helping organizations individually sort through what that means for them, all the way through strategic alliances, partnerships, and even mergers, is just a reality that the philanthropic community is going to need to help organizations prepare for and navigate. And I can understand why it's an area our organizations are saying they need support. And then the last, which I think is really special and important for this group, is that beyond the dollars, organizations need other types of support to expand their reach, right? We surveyed our grantees twice between the end of last year and then earlier in the spring. And more money was actually not at the top of the list when they asked for what they needed. What they needed was support around their fundraising strategy that they could drive themselves, or legal and risk management support as they were navigating kind of this volatile environment, or even just operational strategy so they can tighten the way that they can be more efficient in their processes and what they deliver. And what I love about that is that each of us here bring professional expertise and experiences in many of the areas where organizations are looking for support, but can't hire a whole team of consultants to do that for them, where that's an opportunity for volunteerism, where we can really step in and begin to help folks in ways that, again, furthers their mission and then the impact overall in our community. And so what I want to leave you with before we dive into Q&A is to really just think about the ways that beyond what you do today, what's that one additional step that you can take to show up as a stronger civic actor, even through volunteerism, to help our organizations do more at a time where there's a lot of pressure on them and they need the support to ensure that we can continue to support our communities in a thoughtful way. And so if you feel inclined to share with me that one thing that you're going to do leaving this conversation, I welcome it. But overall, I turn it back to our incredible team at Rotary to get us into some Q&A.
Thank you, Alesha. I'll go ahead and ask that people put their questions in the chat, and Nicole, you can go ahead and read them off as we get them, if you don't mind.
And I'll kick us off with a question while we're waiting for some chat. Given the current federal environment, what are you seeing from our local nonprofits? Are there some going out of business yet? Are there more consolidations happening? Tell us a little bit about the current environment.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jan. And so I think we're seeing some early signs, like not massive numbers of organizations closing, but definitely early signs of a few like childcare centers that because of lost Head Start dollars are not able to operate the way that they've been able to in the past. Definitely a lot of inquiries from organizations that are looking for more of this kind of capacity building and technical support as they're trying to plan through financial strategy and operational strategy, given changes to their government grants that they've relied on. My assessment tells me, just from talking with colleagues across the country, as well as just kind of watching what's playing out here, is that the other shoe on this hasn't fully dropped yet. And I think we will understand more what the impact will be on local communities once we really start to understand the impact of federal funding cuts to like the city and the county, right? And what that's going to mean, not just for organizations that they subcontract to for community work, right? For homelessness services, for education services, things like that, but also broader dollars that they rely on discretionary wise for like bridges and roads and ferries and other things, right? And so unfortunately, we don't fully understand that yet, but I think we will in due time. And then I think we'll see more accelerated pace of organizations having to right size or restructure because the dollars, you can't replace that quickly in terms of what we might lose.
In the chat, we have one from Paul. If you want to wave your hand. Alesha, could you discuss how you attract a new generation of grantors? How do they differ in their attitude towards Seattle Foundation and philanthropy from those that have been your traditional backbone of support?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul, and good to see you. And so, Cindy could also jump in on this as well because she spends a lot of time out in community talking to folks that may have interest in opening funds or being in a relationship with us. But I think we're seeing kind of the next wave in terms of generations of philanthropists show up in a couple ways. One, it is through tapping into not different. I think, there's nothing new under the sun. So all this stuff comes full circle at some point. But like Seattle is a tech town, right? So being back in a space where we're talking to the newest generation of Microsoft employees, Google employees, Amazon employees. We have a director on staff that complements Cindy's work that is out trying to find new pathways to connect with different audiences that want to be in partnership with us. We see a lot of folks that we call them, they're high earners, but not rich yet, who want to engage philanthropically. They have young families, so they're still thinking through, do I have the discretionary resources to really give at high amounts? But they're philanthropically inclined. And so talking with them early about what it means to be an effective giver is one path. Another path that we see is actually through our fund holders that have been with us for a while, who are now thinking about what does it mean to create opportunities for their children and their grandchildren to be active with the funds that we already have. And so seeing more family engagement, seeing more folks setting aside dollars either through the same fund or a separate fund to support, again, their children or their grandchildren to kind of lead in their philanthropy is another space. And we try to offer advising and educational services for families around the impact of giving, so they can navigate topics like trace-based giving or what is climate justice and how do I think about that in context of family dynamics. We try to prepare with folks that way. But Cindy, you may have some thoughts on this as well that you might want to share.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to weigh in, but I think what you said was really, really honestly true, Alesha. Younger and emerging philanthropists are often entrepreneurial, and they're looking for tangible impact and outcomes, which is slightly different. They're more comfortable with risk, I think.
All right, because I am Sergeant at Arms, I get to ask a question, I think. No, mine was, how do you decide? Because we have a little pot of money here, and I'm not on that committee, but I know it is really hard. There's so many good projects and nonprofits. How do you decide? What's that process like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nicole. And this comes up for us a lot, especially with our discretionary dollars. Because again, as we did in our pop quiz, right, that's a very small part of our giving that we do every year. And so we weigh it through a couple of means for us. The first is from just kind of a mission and vision values perspective, right? Like we are like privileged to be able to work with so many engaged philanthropists across this community through their personal giving and things that they want to drive. And then we get to look at that and determine where our discretionary dollars, where's the complement, where can we fill in the gap, right? And so if our fund holders really lean into supporting education and social services and kind of direct needs, that's fantastic. What that has taught us is that this gives us an opportunity to think about more upstream work, as we call it. So policy and advocacy work, organizing and power building work, really focusing in on organizations who typically would not have normal access to institutional funders like us, right? We get to fill in that gap and focus in on the spaces that data tells us there's still a great need. And then when it comes to then deciding who gets the resources, there's always going to be way more requests than what we have dollars to actually do. And so a great example that our team talked about this morning in terms of decision-making process is through sorting through like who kind of feels pretty shovel ready in terms of what they're ready to do, right? And so we can give them those dollars and know it's going to accelerate where they need to go. Sometimes we'll have to do trade-offs or priorities around organizations that may be bigger and more well-established, that they probably have other opportunities to go to funders, whereas a more smaller grassroots organization may have a great plan, but still not that same level of access. So we may prioritize them first, and then in a second round, go back to the other organization, right? And so it really comes down to how does our mission, vision, values drive this at the end of the day? And then organizational readiness, and then the opportunity we see for kind of immediate impact in community, if that's what we're aiming for, or coalition work. That's been another path that we've taken, that if we have 3 organizations on a proposal, sometimes this adds more strength to the work than just one organization or funding multiple at a time. And so all those factors come into play to help us decide what to do with limited resources.
Great answer. Very thorough. We can learn a lot from that. Those are great qualities for process. Maddie, if you want to wave your hand, she wants to say, could you talk about what changes you might need to make to the grant process? Oh, wait. To support multi-year general operating funding. So are you able to do that through that process? I guess it builds on the question I asked.
Yeah, absolutely, Maddie. Thank you for the question. And so we do that now. When we plan our budget year around our grant making, it encompasses organizations that we want to make multi-year commitments to. We do a blend of fundraising for our core grant making, as well as what we naturally pull from kind of a quasi endowment that we have in-house. And so our commitment is always never to allocate dollars that we don't have cash on hand for, because that's then a disservice to community organizations that are depending on those resources for what they do. And so anywhere between 2 to 3 years is the runway that we try to look at. Most of our grant sizes average from 250, sometimes $500,000. So we try to be thoughtful about meaningful multi-year grants that we can move. But we will also consider smaller one-time grants that really focus in on health and wellness of nonprofit leaders and their staff, because that's still a big need right now, right? With so much happening in our environment and organizations that we're relying on to do good work, their leaders get tired. The organizational staff get tired. And how are we fueling their rest and restoration? And so we'll use smaller project-specific grants for that.
I love hearing that. So next question's from Mark. When it comes to BIPOC communities, what is the greatest need right now, and where is the biggest opportunity to move the needle?
This is not, I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, Mark, in terms of the greatest need. I mean, you know, again, we're kind of following headlines, and so a lot of things track together. Folks that are working in the immigrant rights space, folks that are working within trans and queer communities, they are feeling the most pressure and attack right now in a lot of different ways. I mean, we read about ICE raids and things that are happening across the country, that has been happening in Washington State, that has even happened in the Seattle area. We have organizational leaders that have been directly harmed by what has happened. And so organizations working within those spaces, we see not just the need, but also like the threat they are feeling to their own personal well-being and that of their teams, right? And so a lot of the support that they're looking for, again, has been the dollars to be able to resource and move flexibly. And sometimes that's everything from legal education and defense efforts to being able to provide support for the staff if something traumatic has happened and they need to be able to like close for a day. Legal and risk management, I can't overstate how important that is right now. Like many of us that have worked in corporate settings know what it means to go through an enterprise risk management process to ensure that your organization has really checked everything that you would need to respond to an incident or a risk that could emerge. Nonprofits need that too. And unfortunately, I'm finding because of this environment, some funders are shying away from investing in that work because they don't want it to be seen as like politically engaged or risky, but like this is just good business practice that organizations are trying to do and need support to be able to do to sustain their work. And so that's an incredible need that I think like kind of goes through the reality of dealing in real time with like immigrant rights issues, trans and queer issues, and just communities feeling like they can't move comfortably in their neighborhoods anymore because of who may be watching them at the end of the day. Unfortunately, that's where we are.
I'll let Jan wrap us up.
Alesha, my final question for you is what keeps you awake at night?
Well, a lot, because I haven't been sleeping with recently, as Cindy knows. I mean, I don't ever want to leave a conversation on kind of a complete downer note, but it is tough to watch what's playing out in our country right now for a lot of different ways, right? Like, and I think we've reached a point where there's no part of our community or even individuals that doesn't feel something in terms of what is happening. And so I think about the future that's going to be there for our children, right? And the young people that are growing up in this now. But I still hold a lot of hope and joy, again, back to civic engagement and the power that exists in the community. Like our voice matters, how we engage matters. And the glimmers that I see through the organizations we support, or even I think it was Dorothy and you kind of naming the thing that you're preparing for over Labor Day weekend, right? Is those little moments that remind me that the power that we have as individuals. And so that lulls me to sleep whenever I'm awakened by just the challenges we're facing at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a thanks for participating today, our club's foundation, which is the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, has provided 600 servings of healthy produce to those in need through Harvest Against Hunger in your name. So thank you for being with us. I also want to give out a special thank you to REB Enterprises, Carl Benke, for supporting us this year. I also want to thank Bloodworks Northwest and the Baird, the Westland Morse Group for their sponsorship support. So thanks to all of you. Thanks also one more time to Lisa Edwards and Colin Olden for their presentation about the RISE program. Nicole, do you have any announcements for us?
Of course. So this one up on your screen, if you wanted to scan, you can join us for a hands-on volunteer experience like we talked about in civic engagement. This is one where you can really be a part of it. So scan here. It's coming up on Monday, September 1st, which is this next week. Next slide. Oh, we have the next meeting in person will be at the WAC, and we will be talking to Chris Mefford and Brian Surratt. So this is about our city again, really focused on Seattle and its issues and how to solve them. Next slide. So this is one that I pitched pretty hard last time. Fair start for $20. You can join us for our first evening event that Stephen has helped us plan. This is one where we'll get a little tour, some insight about where our funding went with our grant to them. I think it was $12,000. And you'll also get to hear about volunteer opportunities with this nonprofit, which I've done one, which you get to sit in and do a mock interview with almost graduated members, and it's really fun. You give them feedback and prepare them to get out in the workforce, but there's lots of other opportunities. And the next one is Wednesday, September 17th at the Rainier Club. And remember to go online and register for all these so we get a good head count. Even next week, I saw we had a lot of spaces open. So socialize, of course, show up early, and we'll have time to talk, and we'll have those table topics. So we have our own John Scholes. Oh, sorry. And Marco McIntyre, sorry. And this will be another civic update to be there for. Next one, Wednesday, September 24th, will be on Zoom like this. And we will have a panel on the economy. So this is one, I think this is Dorothy Bullets, that she'll be talking to us with our younger members about what's on their minds and keeping them up at night. It'll be a good one to engage with and hear this important perspective. I think that's it.
Thank you, Nicole. We have a special volunteer opportunity coming up next week at the start of our meeting. And Jevin, our VP of Service, will you tell us about what we're going to be doing?
I'd be happy to. Thanks, President Jan. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jevin Powell. I'm your Vice President of Service. I joined Rotary because I wanted to serve my community, and my mission this year is to help all of us do exactly that. So did you know that Seattle Rotary established the Rotary Boys and Girls Club in 1939. It started as the Rotary Youth Foundation in the basement of Plymouth Church. Many of us know that building now. By 1953, the club had outgrown the church facilities. So in 1954, the Rotary Club of Seattle funded the construction of the existing facility up on Capitol Hill. The Rotary Boys and Girls Club continues to provide children a positive place where they can build the skills to realize their full potential as productive, responsible, caring citizens. Seattle Rotary's legacy of support for the Rotary Boys and Girls Club continues today, and I would like to invite you to help out. Our very own Dr. Tatiana Serlina Spady is leading a service project that gives each of us a special opportunity to inspire and encourage the young people at the Rotary Boys and Girls Club. Specifically, what we invite you to do is write 1 or 2 heartfelt letters, either handwritten on a nice card or neatly printed on quality paper, to greet students with a warm back-to-school message. In this effort, you don't need to name a specific child. A simple opening, such as "Dear Friend," and a closing, such as "Your friend from Seattle 4," or your own name, is perfect. What matters most is that your message is uplifting, encouraging students to do their best in school, set high goals, and look for ways to serve their community. If you add a touch of humor too, of course, that's always helpful. So if you are so inclined, you can please bring your letters or cards next week to the meeting, or you can deliver them to Mary Goldie by September 3rd. Or here's another option. You can come early to next week's meeting and compose some cards or letters before the meeting starts. We will have plenty of pens and cards on hand to help out with this. This will give us time to share the letters and cards with students right at the start of the school years. So please watch for an email from Mary, plus information in the newsletter. We'll have sample letters available for different age groups, but feel free to just let your own creativity, encouragement, and kindness shine through. So a few words of inspiration from you can make a lasting difference in a young person's life. Let's show these kids that Seattle Rotary believes in their potential and stands behind them as they step into a new year of learning and growth. If you have questions, you can contact Tatiana directly, and I just put her email into the chat. You can also reach out to Mary Goldie. Of course, she knows all and sees all and can help with most things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jevin. I think this is a great way to start our service for the year. So I hope all of you will participate either in person at the meeting or bring your cards with you or get them to Mary by September 3rd, right? Okay. Right. You know, I had a friend back in the day. She was very wealthy, and she always told me, "I'm going to set up my own family foundation." and I'm going to hire you to run it. And I always thought that would be a really fun thing to do. But the more we looked into that, the more we realized it is a huge amount of work to run your own foundation. There's all kinds of tax requirements and regulations, and it's not such an easy thing to do, even if you have, as she did, a lot of money. So I suggested to her that she set up a fund at the Seattle Foundation, which she knew nothing about. So she decided to try them out. And she set up a small donor advised fund. I think it started out with $500,000. And unfortunately, she became ill and was not able to donate from the fund. I ended up getting to give away her money, which it was a lot of fun to do that. But because her experience with the Seattle Foundation was so good and so positive, she ended up with the residual from her estate going to the Seattle Foundation, which was terrific for them and terrific for our community. I believe that Rotary and the Seattle Foundation share kind of a common DNA. And that's the belief that when people join together in service and leadership and generosity, we can build something bigger than ourselves. It's a pretty powerful cycle. As engaged civic leaders, we set the direction. The foundation mobilizes resources, and then together we can build a stronger, more vibrant, healthier community. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm looking forward to seeing you September 3rd at the WAC. Chris Mefford and Brian Surratt are terrific, and they know a lot about our regional economy, which is what they're going to be focusing on. We are now adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everyone.